Hello, my name is Anne. Thank you so much for tuning into Art on the Creek. Once again, we are in my home studio in Parker, Colorado, and it is December 2023. We are in the holiday season. So happy holidays, everyone. I hope everything is going well for you this month. We're having a lot of fun. We've had some family visitors starting from Thanksgiving, and it'll happen again all through Christmas. So our home is full of love and light, and I certainly hope that yours is too. Today, I thought what we could do, I would like to get out the Gallo watercolors again because, the traditional colors of Christmas are red and green. Greens tend to be really pretty easy to paint with, but sometimes reds can be a little tricky because they're really easy to overwork or get kind of muddy. Well, I have found just in my personal experience that the Gallo watercolors don't do that with the reds. So I have a set that I'd like to pull out for you, and I thought that we could paint the most beautiful red bird that there is this time of year, a cardinal. So if you're ready, let's go see what this is all about. Before we continue though, please subscribe to Art on the Creek if you haven't done so already by clicking on that subscribe button and turn on that notification bell too so that you'll always know when I launch a new tutorial or a product review. Of course, if you do enjoy content like this, make sure that you give it a like, leave a comment, or share it with your friends. If you'd really like to take your art skills to the next level, I would encourage you to consider a membership with Art on the Creek. When you're a member, or patron of my channel, your membership includes an extensive library of tutorials covering drawings and paintings of a variety of subjects, not just beautiful Colorado, and also in many different art media. You'll have full and unlimited access to an ever-growing members library of tutorials and reviews, as well as the opportunity to receive guided feedback and critique from me. And also, you'll have direct input into which art technique or medium you'd like to learn more about as a member, as well as access to free art supplies. All of that and more is included in your membership, and it's all very conveniently right here on YouTube. There's a link in the description below that will go over all the membership details. But if you still have any questions, just ask me in the comments and I'll be sure to help you out. Now, let's move on to today's subject, shall we? Cardinals are just so beautiful. They have a really pretty song too. Like I said, we don't have any here, but they're all along the eastern United States, and I'm sure other places in the world too. I've already got him drawn here. I'm using the Arches 100% Cotton Cold Press Travel Journal. I love this thing. I've almost got it filled up, and I'll probably buy another. I want you to see it here in case you're looking for one. I will put affiliate links in the description to everything that I'm using here, as well as some links that aren't affiliate. But if you do choose to use some of those affiliate links to go shopping, of course, that does help my channel out. So I have thank you in advance. When I first drew him, I had to scoot him over because I got his tail all the way off the page. And sure enough, it happened again. So I did want to make him a little bit bigger so that I could, so you guys could see the detail. So you might want to use a bigger paper if you're doing this. I got some new washi tapes. This is kind of a forest collection, and I thought it would be kind of fun because, green to go with the red. So I really like these a lot. And I ended up also finding, I've got these separated out. Look, Happy New Year washi tape. I had no idea that I could find such neat patterns. I'm sure you guys that are washi tape fans already know a lot of this stuff, but I'm kind of a drafting tape girl. I had a lot of washi tape last year, and I went through it, and so I decided I do like it. Sometimes I do like having a pattern over that drafting tape, even though the drafting tape is more economical and, better bang for the buck. Look at that. It says Happy New Year. I mean, how fun is that? So these three are New Year's. I've got some Christmas here on my right thumb. And in the other set, the set that's not the forest set, they have all 4 seasons. So on today's, I thought I would go into this forest set here and use some of the trees. So let me get this put away and I will get our paper all taped up. There we go. As I was putting this tape on, I realized the washi tape that I had probably started to lose an awful lot of its stickum because it really didn't stick down as nicely as this. This feels pretty strong too, so I'm happy with it. Oh, and look how pretty that looks. Doesn't that look festive? Oh, you guys, I like to have fun in the little things. Do you like washi tape too? Let me know in the comments if you found a brand that you really like over any of the others. I just figure they're all kind of the same, but I am relatively new to washi tape because, like I said, I only had some last year, and I've always just used drafting tape. So this is fun, having patterns. I'm kind of liking it. The thing about this journal, when you almost get through it, you do have an awful lot of buckling, which is fine. So I'm using clips to put that down, hold that down. Now I will put a link up in the corner here. I've already reviewed this set. This is the A. Gallo set of watercolors. And I actually won this set. I was amazed. This is a beautiful set. I entered a drawing right around my birthday, and I won. I'm still shocked. I never win anything, but I also got a couple of Tintoretto brushes with it. I love these watercolors. They're handmade in Assisi, Italy, and they've got honey in them, which really helps with my climate. I'm very, very blessed to have something like this in my life. Many of you know that from time to time on my channel, I do like to host a giveaway. Today, we're going to do another one. I have this Signature 2 set from A. Gallo watercolors, and I've used it a couple of times. It's very gently used. I've got it all cleaned up. It's in really great condition. A lot of paintings are left in here. I will put all of the rules to this giveaway in the description, and it's very important that you follow the rules if you want to be considered to receive this set for free. I will pay for shipping no matter where you are in the world. I will get this to you. So what you need to do is in the comments, write the word cardinal. It has to be all caps. You're going to write the word cardinal, and you also need to like this video, you need to subscribe, and you need to be a member of my channel. So if you've been debating becoming a member, this is the time to do it. If you're not a member yet, go ahead and sign up and then comment with the word cardinal in all caps. Like this video, subscribe, and you'll be all set. I will take all of the comments that have all of that in them, meet all the requirements, and I will do a random drawing. It also comes with this travel Tintoretto brush. It is a quill brush, and I've got it all cleaned up, all ready to go. There's a ton of paint left in here. These are all half pans, and I've made 2 additional swatch cards for you. This is 100% cotton paper. It is rough press, and I will include my original swatch card in here. So I wish the best of luck to everyone who is interested in entering this little giveaway. No one is working with me for this giveaway. This is all the expenses incurred are out of my own pocket. I have this new set of A. Gallo watercolors, and I have so gently used that original set that I purchased that I want to let one of you have that opportunity to be able to experience the A. Gallo watercolors without having to purchase a paint set. The giveaway is open to every membership level, and you can be an existing or a brand new member in order to participate in this giveaway. Once everything is finished, I'll connect with you and send you this gently used set of A. Gallo watercolors. Today, let's go ahead and use this brush. This is the Winsor & Newton Professional 1-stroke 3/4 inch sable watercolor brush. Sable is very interesting to use. Now, this is pure sable. It's not vegan. But what it does, the way that the individual hairs work, the water, or paint for that matter, doesn't stay in the brush. It really wants to leave the brush. So when you dip this in water for the first time, you'll notice you might have to dip it a couple of times to really make it feel like it's holding on to any water. That is so advantageous when you're painting, because that paint just wants to roll right off and go right onto the paper. So it's a slight difference, but when you're using a genuine sable brush, you will be able to detect that difference. And I love using it for backgrounds or large washes, which is what we're going to do here today. Oops, now that little dot of paint that I'm using there is also from A. Gallo. It came on a sample card when I purchased that Signature 2 set. It is the color Viviante. It's so lovely. It reminds me a lot of cobalts in a way, because it's so delicate and fair when it comes out from the brush. The pigment is very, very light. I really, really like it. It's very delicate. I thought it really would work well for a winter stormy sky. I really like the photo. I like how it's framed and the background and the ice on the branches, but I want to change it up just a little bit. So I'm going to kind of give a winter moody sky to this, and I'm adding in some aquamarine, some of the ultramarine, and a little bit of the harbor blue. So all of these colors just kind of could be pine trees in the background. They could be a cloudy day, just kind of leaving it up to your imagination, because the real star of the show here, of course, is going to be the cardinal. So let me finish getting this background in, and then we'll get started on the bird. Now, all of that background was done wet in wet, and that is, of course, where you wet the paper first, and then you apply the paint and just kind of let the paint do whatever it wants. I really like using a good textured cold press paper for that, because you can really use paints to your best advantage, I think. because they will dance around and play in those rivulets of the cotton watercolor paper that's got that texture, and then the colors can blend kind of naturally. I'm now going in with some neutral tint and kind of suggesting some branches, and just wanted to really get a very loose depiction of it. Now when this dries, you won't really be able to see that they are branches, and that's what I really like about it. They're going to be so out of focus. This is a really neat effect that you can do with backgrounds and wet on wet. You can go ahead and put things in, and then as they dry, you start with wet on wet, go to wet on damp, and then as they dry, they will just continue to merge together on the paper and create a very subtle, soft background. So now I'm switching over to my number 0 Tintoretto quill brush. And those are synthetic squirrel, by the way. I really like these brushes by Tintoretto. I also got this one from a Gallo, but I have seen Tintoretto brushes for sale elsewhere. They're also made in Italy. I'm using a couple of colors here on the branch. Now I'm kind of thinking of a birch branch a little bit, but you know, maybe not. I don't know. I don't really have plans just too much yet. I'm going in with a neutral tint and a little bit of the browns here. I'm using some chromite brown and trying to get that to blend just a little bit. I'm leaving the top part of the branch light so far because I'm not really sure what I want to do with it yet. Just kind of pulling these lines of the branches that I put in from that neutral tint, kind of pulling them out into the background a little bit. There was a little bit of space where I lifted up my brush before I got to the bird, and I didn't want to leave kind of a halo effect around the bird. So I think I like the way this is headed. Let's get it dry and go on to our next step. Now what I tried to do in this cardinal is to really create the layers of red. When you zoom in on that reference photo, you can see that it's not just all one shade of red. There's an awful lot of different light and darkness happening there in the values of the red of the cardinal. So the first wash here that I'm going over has the Hokkaido orange mixed with Medici red. If you don't have those colors, any kind of warm yellow mixed with a lighter red, like a light cadmium red, that would probably work. I really enjoy using these watercolors because they are very sheer and luminescent, and I think if you go in with a thin wash, that's another good tip for you to when you're starting your washes. If you don't want things to get muddy, keep your washes as thin as possible, because that's a point of watercolor. You want to have that luminescence shine through, and when it can do that through many different layers, that's when you really get those dimensionality effects and lovely, lovely texture to your drawings and your paintings. After you have your initial wash down, and while it is still damp, that's the time to go to your next red. Now I've used that Medici red, which is a very warm red, for that first wash. Now I'm going in with an alizarin crimson hue, and you can just use your regular alizarin crimson for this. Any kind of red that's just a little bit cooler, a little bit more intense in value. So what you're going to do is layer this over that warm red that you've placed down, and do so that you are applying the paint onto a damp surface. Now here I've realized I forgot to do a whole section of his head here, so I'm just kind of getting myself caught up. But I'm just going in with a little damp, watery brush mix there of after I rinse my brush, and I'll go back in with the alizarin crimson here and tap more color in on these areas that are still damp. Now, as you're doing this, I don't know if you can notice, but I'm trying to use textural brush strokes. And what that means is I'm not filling in the wash just completely solidly. I'm kind of dancing the brush around, dropping color in, really letting these paints do what it is that they want to do. And that's the way that I am going to express dimensionality in this bird's shape and form. Now I've gone in with the ruby red, and that is a little bit darker red. It's a little bit deeper of a pigment, more intense in value. And I'm just going in wherever it feels like it needs a little bit more body. Now with that same deepest red, I'm pulling out just a few feathers. You can do this in so many different ways. You can switch brushes and use something much smaller. You can go to a grainer brush, or you can splay out the bristles, the filaments on your brush. Ugh, hard for me to say. You can splay out the filaments on your brush so that you can create a fine wispy kind of a hair poof. But I just wanted to go ahead and get that first run of the edge feathers down where it floofs out from the bird. And now I'm going in with one more drop in of color. This is Hokkaido orange that I'm dropping in. I really want this to merge and play with the reds that are there and continue the translucence. So you can kind of see, there's a little bit of a glare, but you can kind of see, especially on his belly, how those colors are kind of playing together. That will help to give this bird a lot of shape and form. So let's see what we can do next. Now it's time for the wing. And these I think are called cap feathers, not entirely sure. This is like on his shoulder. I'm going in with a mix of sepia and ruby red, kind of leaning more toward the sepia. It creates a nice dusty brown, and that's really the color that these feathers are. When you zoom in, whenever you're looking at any subject, I highly recommend taking that reference photo, whether you took it or if you're looking at something on Unsplash or Pixabay or reference photos for artists, any photo at all. Zoom in and really look at the color. Look at its depth, look at its layers, see what else is in there. You might think, oh, that's brown. But when you really zoom in deep, you might see that there's some purple under there, or you might see that there's a tinge of red under there. Those are the kinds of things to notice as an artist. Those are the things that I would like to see you really feel confident with in your powers of observation, is to be able to see what depth of color your subject has. And that's why I mixed that sepia with the red, because to me, when I look at this bird, those wing feathers are that dun color. It is a dusty brown, but they're also mixed with a little bit of red. So that's what I wanted to do here for these wing feathers, and it's working out pretty well. You want to be careful there around the edges that you don't get too much into the body, because that's still wet. And now we're just going to go ahead and suggest, well, let's get in these other wing feathers that are from his right wing, the one behind him. And I'm just putting the border of the wings on here. This is all sepia, a good thick mix of sepia. And I'm just going to kind of leave a little bit of white space there so that I can establish the curves in those as time goes on. Now what I'm going to do is create the first definition of these wing feathers, just kind of putting a little bit of stripes. This is all sepia now, going over that wash of the Medici red. And I'm doing the same thing on the tail here. I'm leaving space in between. This is wet into damp, so by doing this, it'll act just like our background did. We're going to come out with a very soft, very gently defined wing feather there. We're going to work on the beak next, because those head feathers have had enough time to dry. But I do want you to notice, see that right wing, the part that's jutting out behind him there? Those white spaces, I filled them in with a little bit of the Medici red, and I'm just letting those blend on the page. Now we're going to go in and work on the beak. This is Hokkaido orange. It's a very thin wash of that Hokkaido orange. And now I'm going to take that Medici red and fill in from the tip, just kind of trying to create that shape on the beak. So what I'm doing here is really working on a gradient. I've got the first wash is Hokkaido orange, and then I've gone in with a little bit of that Medici red. And then I will finish off with some of the alizarin crimson. Just kind of tap it in there very lightly so that it can blend and mix. And here it's going in right now. So you can see how the three colors will mix together on the beak. And then when that is damp, we can go in with just a little tiny bit of this sepia here and create the division. Now, this is very easy to do and friendly to do if you've got your water levels correct. It might take a little bit of practice because if you go down and it's too wet, it's just going to either bleed all over or remove whatever paint you have going on. If it's not the right, it kind of has to be the same water consistency that you've already got on the paper. So mix your paints at the same time so that you know what's going on. I'm just filling in a little space back there that I missed on the background. Mix your paints together when you're going to do a wash like this on his beak, where we've done a gradient of color, so that all your paints are about the same consistency. That's the best advice I can give you there. And when you see spots on your background that are missing, you can just kind of tap in the paint that you need and then blend it around so that it is seamless. Well, now let's take a look at this branch a little bit more. I think what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go in with some of this transparent red oxide and just give it a little bit more shape. Now, I think when this ended up being all said and done, I kind of lost some of the definition in the branch, so I had to go back in with some white, and you'll see the final photo at the end because I had to regain the shape of the branch. But what I'm doing here is I'm just trying to keep the darkest portions. Now I've gone in, now this is some neutral tint mixed with that red iron oxide, transparent red iron oxide. And I'm pulling it up toward the top of the branch. What I wanted to do was to create some really interesting bark texture, but I think I just got kind of too much paint on there, and then it of course continued to work on the paper and got away from me a little bit. But I will show you in the final picture at the end how I remedied that situation. Now I have used a heat tool to dry this completely because now I want to go in and do the black feathers around his beak and eye and head there. So I want to make sure that these black feathers don't leach out into any other part of our bird here. I'm going to try and feather out as I go, no pun intended. I'm kind of pulling the black feathers out into the red feathers, and then I'll fill in that larger area. So I'm just kind of working on this as I go, and then I'll probably use some water to kind of blend it all together, just kind of put the pigment on the edges and then blend it in, because I don't want this to be a solid hard mass of black yet. What I'm using is neutral tint. Their neutral tint is a really nice mix, and it won't appear to be a flat black, so I really did enjoy using the neutral tint in this case. And there's a bit of a shadow here under these feathers that go up toward the crest of his head, so I'm just tapping in little very tiny lines with neutral tint to catch that shadow. And I wanted to go ahead and outline the division in his beak a little bit more thoroughly, as well as get some of these feathers on the edges defined. For this next step, you want to make sure your painting is absolutely dry. So go ahead and dry it with a heat tool before you do this, or walk away from it for a while. Make sure it's absolutely dry before you come back. I'm going in here and re-wetting this area on the wing. These are the cap feathers on the shoulder of the wing, the flight feathers on the tail, and then the wing itself. I'm not doing this on that right wing, just on the wing in the forefront here that we can see. And now I've got some of that alizarin crimson mixed with a little bit of the Medici red, and I am just dropping in some more dimension to these wing feathers. So you'll notice I'm leaving a little bit of space between my lines because I still want to go back in with some of those browns to help define the shape. As so often happens in watercolor, when you're working on one area of your painting, you see another area that needs more work because there's that color shift when things dry. So now that I've got the wing wet and I'm putting on a little bit more pigment on the wing, I realize that I think his belly needs a little bit more value in color. So I'm just going to get that wet again as well and just kind of drop in a little bit more pigment wherever it seems like it would be helpful. My best advice to you when you're doing this and going in and adding more color is go with your gut, but be aware of what color you're putting where, because you do want to avoid overworking something. Even with the best paints in the world, it's easy to overwork things. But with these reds, though, they stay translucent for a real long time. With multiple layers, I mean. So that's why I wanted to show you how easy they are to use and to layer. And you can see in the body of the bird, right around his tummy there, you can see that I still have a lot of different variants in color tone. And that's when you know that you've got what you want, but you don't want to go too far. So you do need to resist that temptation to keep working. On this wet into damp, I'm going ahead and working in the shadow lines from the wing feathers and kind of defining those wing feathers a little bit, not too precisely, but just a little bit with some of the sepia. And in some cases, I've mixed that sepia with some of that neutral tint just to help it come out a little bit more, particularly on that line right there, because there is a bit of a division in the wing structure. And by emphasizing that shadow, I can help to separate those two parts of the wings just a little bit. And of course, we'll go in and do the same thing with the tail feathers. Now as I'm looking at the wing, I feel like I've lost some of the highlights on the shoulder there, on the wing cap. So what I'm going to do is go in with a Taklon brush and lift off. I'm just creating a little bit of a gentle highlight here, and I'm not going to do it everywhere. I'm just doing 3 or 4 swipes here. And then I will go ahead and do it from the other direction as well so that I can get some of those tips of the feathers highlighted. And I'm going to do it a little bit just below that wing cap, but I think we're pretty good just pretty much focusing on the wing cap itself. And I just want to point out how forgiving this is. Now, if you've got a staining watercolor, this is not as easy, but I want to show you how easy it is to lift off right here on this Arches paper. When I was lifting things off, I kind of pushed some of the red out into the background. So I'm taking a Taklon brush, that same one that I used to lift off, and I'm going in with just clear water and I'm scrubbing it around very gently, and it lifts right off and it left the background. However, I can still see a little tiny bit of that red there. So I'm just going to go in with a very faint wash of the background, and then I will blend that in with the larger brush that I used initially, and we will be good to go. Once again, we want to completely dry our bird, And now I'm going in with that same number 4 round, the Taklon brush, and I'm using the neutral tint on the eye. Now on this cardinal's eye, there's a lighter area around the eyeball itself, and then there's kind of a rim of skin before the feathers start. So I'm trying to leave a white space, and I've also got the highlight of the eye in there. Right now, I think unfortunately you guys are just getting a glare from it, and I do apologize, but I got it a little too runny there, so I'm going to go in with a drier brush and kind of lift some of it out, and then in subsequent footage here, you'll be able to see where that highlight is and how we worked on that. So now I'm just going to go in and touch up some of these feathers because they've had a chance to dry. The black feathers around his neck. Again, I'm using the neutral tint, and I'm just adding a layer because that will give depth and character to the feathers there around that black accent. Now you can see what I'm mixing is the sepia and some of that ruby red. I'm going to go in and very gently with that number 4 brush kind of define some shadows in between the feathers. I'm going to do that on his shoulder cap here and a little bit on the flight feathers. So let's go ahead and add these little shadows here. You're kind of just drawing a line where the base of the feather would be, and then in some cases I'm coming up with a little center line just to suggest that it's a feather. Not anything really detailed, just trying to get a little bit of definition in there to distinguish them from the soft downiness of the rest of the bird. It's time to paint his little feet, but before we do that, we want to make sure that the painting is very dry. So once again, I've gone in with that heat tool and dried him off. And now I'm looking closely at that reference photo. I can only see 1 leg, and I can see 4 claws. So that's what I'm going to paint. I'm just going to paint what I can see. And I'm mixing the transparent red oxide with some of the neutral tint. That will give me, if you don't have those 2 shades, I would say go with some burnt sienna or something like that. You need it looks like the feet are kind of a reddish brown. So I'm trying to paint the joints in the feet as well as the claws that are holding on to or toes that are holding on to the branch. And again, I'm using that number 4 round to get that done. Once your painting is completely dry, it's time to add some highlights. So since all of this down here is kind of dark and it can get lost, highlights can really help bring that out. So I'm just using some Daler Rowney bleed proof white. You can use P.H. Martin's, or you can use a gel pen or a little fine point acrylic paint pen, whatever you want to do. You just need some opaque white. You can even use gouache. And I'm just putting some highlights on his toes, and now I'm going to go in and see if I can make this eye a little bit more to my liking. I'm going to increase the size of the highlight, and that's the great thing about having something like this, gouache or an acrylic paint pen or a gel pen, anything that's a really opaque white. You know, sometimes you get to painting along and you lose the highlight in the eye that you meant to leave white. Go ahead and go over it with gouache or something like that. Use an opaque white and go ahead and fill it in, and I can go ahead and put that highlight in the eye and put the ring around there, and right away he's got a nice Papa Bird kind of personality. So I'm going in and filling in a little bit more of the neutral tint here to just darken his eye. Once you get the eye in, whenever you're painting animals, once you get that eye in, then they really come to life. Your animal finally has a soul, and then you can really look at your painting and assess it for what it's worth. And as I'm looking at our cardinal, I think he's finished, you guys. I really like the way his body feathers came out, and I don't think there's anything I could do to improve him other than the branch. We'll work on that in just a minute. I'm going to use the heat tool to help me take off this washi tape. It's very easy to remove, but what I want you to do whenever you're removing washi tape is to go ahead and use that heat tool. I just can't seem to get a grip on this little piece here. There we go. I heat up the area that I'm pulling off ahead of where I'm pulling, and I always pull off at a 90-degree angle. So just basically remember to pull away from the center of your painting. You don't want your paper to come off, and that washi tape can sometimes be a little bit unforgiving no matter how gentle it is. Your bleed-proof white or opaque white is kind of a Swiss Army knife for your art studio, because we can also use it to clean up these tiny little parts here that kind of seeped under the washi tape. There's one over here too. Let's just get that cleaned up, and then we have a beautiful crisp white border for our cardinal. Now, once again, I've thoroughly dried this because now I'm going to go ahead and erase the pencil lines that kind of were under the washi tape on the edges. And for this, I really do like to use a kneaded eraser because it'll pick up all manner of sins and you can clean them very easily just by kneading them, which is why they're called a kneaded eraser. At any rate, I want you to notice these reds. Look how beautiful they are. I think that Gallo really has something going with their reds. They're very special, and I'm just very happy with them. Wherever you are, no matter what you're painting, I always recommend that you sign your work. Be proud of what you've done. It will, in the long run, you can look back and see where you were at that point in your art journey. And, you know, if you're going to end up giving it to someone, well, then they've got that personal signature there. Well, here's the final. You can see how I decided to finish that branch. I just put in a little bit of bleed-proof white to kind of suggest a dusting of snow maybe, and that pulls that branch away from the bird just a little bit. I hope you guys are having a wonderful December and getting ready for a happy new year for 2024. And if you are interested in that A Gallo Signature 2 watercolor set, just check out the description for the instructions on how to enter that giveaway. And I will see you guys next time. Take care, everybody. Bye now.